The court orders Royal Dutch Shell, via its concern policy of Shell Group, to reduce its carbon dioxide output and those of its suppliers and buyers by the end of 2030 by a net of 45% based on 2019 levels.
Donald Pauls is director of Friends of the Earth in the Netherlands. He joins us live from Amsterdam. Well, Donald, I have to say you have the glow of a win about you. First, I should say congratulations. So this is historic.
Thank you very much.
It was quick, with the case only being filed in 2019. And it's a big deal. How is your group beginning to process this victory?
Of course, you can imagine after you've had a win like this, it takes at least a day to reflect on it and to have a bit of a party together. So we'll be having a small Zoom-based party at the end of this day. But the implications are enormous. To start off with Shell, this is the first big polluter that is forced by a court of law to reduce its CO2 emissions substantively. And it's an example of a legal precedent that my organization will use to address and hold Dutch corporates to account. So we're going to use this to maybe have similar court cases against other Dutch major polluters. And you can expect that throughout the world, civil society organizations will launch similar cases against other large polluters.
You know, you had a court victory earlier this year, also against Shell, right? The one that you represented Nigerian farmers against oil pollution, although that one took a lot longer. That case was filed back in 2008. So here we are only seeing the outcome in 2021. And we have seen the occasional other case, not as historic as this one most recently, but would you say there's a greater activity among courts, more of an acceptance to say, yes, there can be real liability in cases that affect the environment?
Indeed, if you compare this win of yesterday, it took us 2 years, and the win against Shell in Nigeria took 13 years. And it is a reflection of a change in the societal appreciation of climate change and the need for big corporates to act and the need to take action on the climate change. But it's also a growing activism amongst the legal profession, including, of course, judges.
So in this case, Shell is supposed to cut its CO2 emissions by nearly half by 2030. Of course, they're appealing the ruling. I think that's absolutely to be expected in a case like this, so no surprise there. But what do you think is the real likelihood that we will see them need to take action? Or is this another one of those cases that sounds big on the initial win, but then over the years of the appeal, it peters out?
The appeal will not result in a postponement. The character of the judgment is that even if there's an appeal, Shell has to implement. And it's an enormous risk for Shell if they would postpone the implementation and wait for the appeal, because then they have to enact the outcome. If we win again, which is probable, they'll still have to enact the decision of this court. I doubt if Shell would postpone the implementation.
You know, lately, sometimes there's this feeling among people that when they see the repeated warnings about the environment and all of the bad news that there is out there, people can tend to tune out because they feel so distressed by it, thinking, well, you know, there are forces greater than me out there continually polluting. There's really nothing I can do. People feel helpless to do more for the environment. Of course, a victory like this kind of sends the opposite message. But how do you combat that sense of helplessness among people out there?
I think what you're addressing now is probably one of the major issues on climate action and policy. It's the need to focus on where the real changes can be made. For too long, climate NGOs have focused on the individual, on consumer behavior, on changing your normal lights to LED lights, on driving less, etc. And the general public do not believe that that will really result in change. And they're rightly so, because it's a global problem that we will not change by individual behavior. And what this shows is that it's really possible to make a major change. Only 25 companies, amongst others Shell, cause half of all climate pollution globally. And they have been sidelined. They've been outside of climate policy forever, and at least since the Paris Climate Accord. And you can imagine if you leave out half of all pollutions in a global system to address climate change, that's not going to work. And what we have done is now brought a multinational responsible for 9 times as many greenhouse gas pollution as the Netherlands into a national climate policy. And this will really make a difference. I've been working on climate change for 20 years. For the first time, I believe we're going to manage to address the climate challenge.
Donald, thank you for that, and enjoy your moment of celebration.